Miami, sunshine, beaches. But sometimes that bright facade can hide some pretty dark realities.
Yeah.
Today we're going deep, deep diving into a case that really shook Liberty City back in 1997.
Okay.
The tragic shooting of a 5-year-old girl, Rakaya Issacs, during a Martin Luther King Day parade, no less.
Oh.
So, a celebration of peace turning into a scene of tragedy. It's a story about a search for justice in the middle of just utter chaos and, well, the unique challenges that come with a stray bullet case. What do you think?
It's heartbreaking. I mean, a celebration of peace and then suddenly tragedy. And the fact that it happened on a day meant to honor Martin Luther King Jr. makes it, well, even more complex,
Right, right. So we've got eyewitness accounts, we've got police records, trial transcripts. Our mission today is to kind of, untangle this whole thing, this case, understand what it means, not just for the community, but for this whole issue of gun violence. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's fascinating how this case, well, it unfolds. I mean, it's not just about finding who pulled the trigger, right? It's about navigating the whole community.
Yeah.
And the legal system, how it handles these kinds of cases. Stray bullets, it's tough.
Yeah. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's a beautiful January day in Liberty City, right? Streets are alive, music, people are out, laughing, having a good time. It's a parade.
Right.
Complete opposite of what's about to happen.
And right in the middle of all that joy, you've got Detective Jeff Lewis, a seasoned officer. He's on duty, and suddenly he hears it. Gunshots.
Yeah.
Cutting right through the music, the laughter. It's unmistakable.
Wow.
And he and his partner, they don't hesitate. They run straight towards the sound, the danger.
I can't even imagine, right? You go from celebration to just panic.
Yeah.
In seconds. The sources describe people scrambling, trying to find safety.
Yeah.
Total confusion.
Chaos. It's a nightmare. Any officer will tell you. But for Lewis, this was his first child homicide case.
Oh, wow.
And the scene, well, it was devastating. Little Rakaya, she was on the sidewalk, head wound. They had to save her. Every second counted.
I bet. So what goes through a detective's mind in that moment? I mean, they have to secure the scene, get witness statements, try to make sense of it all, and a child's life is on the line.
It's a lot. And that's where a stray bullet case gets really, really complicated. Unlike a targeted shooting, you've got a massive crime scene, hundreds of people, all potential witnesses, potential suspects.
Oh, man.
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, a moving haystack.
Right. The sources, they talk about a fight between two girls, escalates into this brawl, lots of people involved, rocks, knives, and then guns. Someone starts shooting. So you said it's hard enough with a stray bullet, but how do they even figure out what happened in all that mess?
It was a long process, piecing together bits and pieces from witnesses. Some wouldn't talk, some gave different stories. Imagine trying to sort through all that, trying to find who the key players were.
And this is Liberty City in the 90s, a community that, well, maybe didn't always trust the police. Did that make it harder to get people to cooperate, people who might know something?
Absolutely. Building trust in a community where there's that history, it's tough. But in this case, people were angry. They wanted justice for Rakaya.
Makes sense.
So despite any hesitation, they came forward.
So the community, they're the ones who gave the detectives the names.
Yeah. They gave up addresses, specific details, helped the investigation a lot.
It wasn't just identifying suspects. It was about accountability. They wanted someone to answer for what happened.
Exactly. And that community involvement, well, it shows the power of wanting justice, especially when a child is the victim. They help move things forward big time.
So we go from the chaos of the crime scene to the interrogation room. Detective Lewis brings in Jason Peavy for questioning. The sources say he focused on building rapport, making Peavy feel comfortable talking.
It's important, people think interrogations are all yelling and intimidation. But a good detective, like Lewis, he knows building trust can get a suspect to open up, even if it means hearing lies at first.
And that's what happened with Peavy, right? His story changed during the interrogation.
Several times. First, he denied everything. Then he admitted to being there, but said he fired a gun on a different day. Finally, he said it was self-defense. Blamed some other guy for starting the shootout.
Trying to make himself the victim.
Exactly. But Lewis was ready for that. He used a polygraph test. Now, it's not admissible in court, but it's a powerful tool. It makes suspects doubt their own lies.
Really? So they use a test that can't even be used in court?
Yeah, think of it like this. Even if the jury never sees the results, the polygraph puts pressure on the suspect.
Oh, I see.
They're being watched, and any inconsistencies in their story, they become obvious. It can make them crack, tell the truth.
A mind game. Using the polygraph to break down those lies.
Exactly. The sources even mention the specific questions Lewis asked Peavy. Was he lying? Did he have a gun? Did he fire it near the parade? It's like we're right there with the detective trying to untangle everything.
And Peavy's reactions, they were important,
Right.
right? Trying to explain away those inconsistencies. Even without a confession, that behavior can be pretty telling.
It can. But there's a big problem in this case: the murder weapon.
Right.
They found a bullet lodged in a tree near the scene, but without the gun to match it to, it's a piece of the puzzle that doesn't fit anywhere. And that brings us to ballistics, something a lot of people might not know about.
Ballistics.
Yeah, it's the science of guns and bullets. When a gun fires, it leaves unique marks on the bullet, like a fingerprint. Experts can compare those marks and see if a bullet came from a specific gun.
So finding that bullet was good, but without the gun, they couldn't prove it came from the shooting. Physical evidence is so important.
Absolutely, and without that link, plus all those conflicting stories, building a case against Peavy was tough. Especially if he claims self-defense. Florida has stand your ground, remember?
Stand your ground. Right. That's a whole other thing. What does it mean, exactly? And how could it affect this case?
Basically, stand your ground says you don't have to retreat if you feel threatened. If you think you're in danger, you can use deadly force to defend yourself, even if you could have run away.
Oh, okay.
So Peavy could say he felt threatened and fired his gun in self-defense. Makes it hard to prove he meant to hurt anyone.
It's a he said, she said situation then? Conflicting stories, no murder weapon, and stand your ground on the table? That's a tough case to win.
It is, and that's why they ended up offering plea deals to both Peavy and Ford. The sources don't say what those deals were, but it happens a lot in stray bullet cases. It's hard to prove who's responsible when so many people were involved.
So someone was held accountable. But was it really justice?
Hmm.
For Rakaya's family? For the community?
That's a hard question. The legal system, well, it has its limits, especially in cases like this where a child is killed and there's no easy answer. It goes beyond guilty or not guilty.
It does. And that leads us to something important. Rakaya's case, it's tragic, but it's not unique. It shows us a bigger problem. That's exactly what we're going to talk about next. We've gone deep into Rakaya's case, the investigation, the challenges, the legal stuff. But this case, it speaks to a larger issue. Gun violence in America. It's, well, almost impossible to ignore, right? This tragedy, it happened on a day meant to celebrate peace, nonviolence, Martin Luther King Day. It adds another layer to this whole thing, to Rakaya's story.
Yeah.
It shows us this problem, gun violence. It's still here in communities all over.
It's a reminder. A powerful one. We've come a long way as a society, but we still got a long way to go to address this problem, gun violence, and the fact that it happened that Rakaya died on a day honoring a man who, well, he fought his whole life for peace, for justice. It makes it, it just makes it even worse.
Yeah. It's like some cruel twist of fate. This little girl, she was at a parade celebrating Dr. King's legacy. She becomes a victim of the very thing he was fighting against. It's tough to think about. And what's even crazier is that Rakaya's case, it happened years ago, but it's still relevant today.
Sadly, yeah. The sources, they say that in 2023, gun violence was the leading cause of death for kids, for teenagers in the U.S. That's a hard truth to swallow. It shows just how urgent this problem is.
It's hard to even grasp that, right? Gun violence more than car accidents, more than cancer. For young people, it makes you think childhood innocence. It's shattered by this threat. It's everywhere.
And it changes how we think about safety. We want to think kids are safe at home, at school, in their communities. But this statistic, it tells a different story. It's a wake-up call. Gun violence, it doesn't care who you are, where you come from. It can happen to anyone. And it takes away futures that haven't even really begun.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. So what can we do? I mean, how do we even start to change something this big, this ingrained in our society? It feels, I don't know, overwhelming.
Well, the sources, they talk about National Gun Violence Awareness Day. It's every year, the first Friday in June. It's a day to remember, to honor those affected by gun violence, and to call for change.
I've heard of it, but I don't really know much about it. What's so special about this day? How does it, I don't know, make a difference?
It's not just about remembering, it's about doing something, encouraging people to get involved, to work on prevention, to fight for, common sense gun safety. And one way they do that, it's by wearing orange.
Orange, what's the connection there? I don't get it.
So hunters wear orange for safety out in the woods. So it's become this symbol for the gun violence prevention movement. You wear orange on this day. It means you stand with the victims, the survivors. It means you want a safer future.
That's pretty cool. Simple, but I don't know, powerful. It gets people talking about this, right? It's not about taking sides or politics. It's about the people, the lives affected by gun violence, and working together to, I don't know, find answers.
Right, and that's why it works this day. It's not about politics, it's about a shared goal, preventing these tragedies, keeping communities safe, safe from gun violence.
So, National Gun Violence Awareness Day, that's a start. But what else can people do? I mean, what are some real, tangible steps to make a difference?
Well, the sources, they say there are a few things. One, support the organizations doing the work on the ground, preventing gun violence. They do community outreach, conflict resolution. They help people who are at risk.
Okay, yeah. Getting to the root of the problem,
Yeah.
helping communities, that seems crucial. Anything else?
Yeah, talking about it openly, honestly, responsible gun ownership. Talk to your friends, family about gun safety. Push for stricter background checks. Support policies that keep guns away from, well, from people who might hurt themselves or others.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just one thing. It's about communities working together, policy changes, and people taking responsibility. And it's about people like Detective Lewis, still working on cold cases even after he retired. That's dedication.
Yeah, the sources, they mention that. He never stopped wanting justice, even years later. Trying to bring closure to families, that says a lot about him, about his commitment.
It's inspiring. It reminds me of something Dr. King said. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Mhm.
Detective Lewis, he lived that, showed that even when things are complicated, when systems fail, one person can still make a difference.
And that's a powerful message for everyone. It's easy to feel helpless with an issue this big, but even small things can change things. Wearing orange, supporting those organizations, just talking about it. We can all do something.
Okay, so as we move to the last part of our deep dive, I want to ask you this. We've looked at Rakaya's case, all the details, the investigation, the challenges, the legal outcomes. We talked about gun violence in America. But what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation? What's the most important thing?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing is this. Rakaya's story, it happened in a specific place at a specific time, but it's part of something much bigger. It reminds us that gun violence isn't just a statistic. It's real people, real lives, real families. It hurts communities, our whole society, and it leaves scars that don't go away.
Yeah, it's easy to forget, get lost in the numbers, the laws, the debates. But we can't forget about the people, the families. Rakaya, she was a daughter, a friend, part of a community. And now there's this hole, this emptiness
Yeah.
that can't be filled.
Right, we have to remember, behind every number, every headline, there's a story like Rakaya's. A family broken, a community trying to deal with this loss.
Mm.
And this feeling of injustice, it doesn't go away, even when the case is closed.
We talked about those plea deals. For Peavy and Ford, we don't know the details, but it makes you think, what does justice even mean in a case like this?
It comes up a lot with gun violence. Legally, a plea deal, it's a resolution, but does it really, I don't know, does it fix things? For the family, they lost a child for no reason.
I can't imagine what that's like. No matter what happens in court, you can't bring her back.
Exactly. The sources, they don't talk about how Rakaya's family felt about those plea deals, but you can imagine. Relief, maybe, but also frustration. The system, it doesn't always feel like enough.
Right. Real justice, it's more than just laws, right? It's about healing, making things right, preventing it from happening again. And this all happened on a day honoring Martin Luther King Jr. It makes you think.
It does. It's this tragic irony. It shows us we have to fix this. We have to get to the root of gun violence, create a world where kids can go to parades, go to school, play outside without being afraid, without becoming another statistic.
So what now? We've looked at this whole case, the investigation, the problems with stray bullets, the legal system, what it all means for America. What do we do with all this information? What's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
It's a call to action. Rakaya's story, it tells us this isn't someone else's problem, it's all of ours. We have to do something. Support those organizations fighting gun violence, push for better laws, talk to each other about responsible gun ownership. We can all be part of the solution.
We have to turn this grief, this anger, into something positive. Remember Rakaya, not just as a victim, but as a symbol that things need to change. Her story and so many others, they have to push us towards a future where this doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. Let her memory be, a light, guiding us to a world where every child can grow up safe from gun violence.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope that by learning about this case, by understanding what it all means, you'll be inspired to act, to be part of the change. Remember, even small actions can make a difference.